Welcome to the SQL or SQL participation project for the WV K-12 education problem. In this project, we're going to look at how we can write from scratch basic SQL statements to manipulate the data in our database. To get started, I've downloaded and extracted the provided data files, and I've opened the starter file here in Access. For these queries, you'll want to make sure that you click the Enable Content button to enable the content. Otherwise, some of the queries that actually make changes to the data stored in our database won't execute. The most common type of computer database in use today is what's called a relational database. It gets that name because it goes and relates or ties together information from different tables. Relational databases use what's called structured query language, sometimes pronounced SQL or SQL. SQL is a syntax that allows you to go and specify what operations you want to perform on the database. The most basic SQL statement is what's called a select statement. And a select statement allows us to identify records that we want to view in a result. Let's get started by writing a simple select statement query. To do that, we're going to go to the Create ribbon and we'll click on Query Design. We're not going to use Design View for defining our query. We're going to actually head over to SQL View. I'm going to click on the SQL View button here in the top left corner of my screen, and we're going to write everything here as SQL statements. For our first query, we want to find the grades that are served by each school and school year. There is a SQL statement that's given in instructions that you can copy and paste, or you can also type it in if you would like. We need to start off with the select keyword. This tells our database that we want to go and retrieve information or select it from the database. After the select statement, we provide a list of the fields that we want to have displayed in our result. If we have multiple fields, we're going to put a comma between them. In this case, though, we just have one field. We want to go and grab the grades served field from the school statistics table. So I'm going to tell it that I want to select space school statistics, since that's the name of my table, dot grades served. And you'll need to make sure that you match what these fields and tables are actually named. If you misspell something, you'll run into a problem when you go to run your query. After we identify the fields that we want to have displayed in our result, we need to tell our database where they're going to come from, what tables or queries the data that is to be used in this query is located in. So after we have our select statement and we list the fields there, we're going to use the from keyword. And it's pretty common to put basically every time we have a new keyword on a new line, although strictly speaking that's not actually required. It's just something that is done to help improve readability. So we're going to tell it we want to select school statistics.grade served from school statistics. In this case, we could actually omit the school statistics name with the table here from grade served. But if you have multiple tables where you have similar field names across the different tables, going through and providing the table name dot field name helps to make it clear which one you want to use. Let's go ahead and run our query and see what our results look like. So you can see here we have that one field being returned, grade served, and we have 5,361 records, which is the number of records that's in our school statistics table. If you want, you can head into Design View and see what this looks like. You can see it has the school statistics table up the top. Basically everything at the top here is going to be in the from clause of our SQL query, and then down below it has the grade served field. So the fields that we have listed after the select clause, they're going to appear down here with the show box checked. In fact, if we were to go and make any changes here in Design View, or even create a new query in Design View, what's going to happen behind the scenes is that Access is going to translate it into SQL code. And we can go back over to SQL View to see what we have there. This query does what we're looking for, just a really simple query to get started. Let's go and save it, and we want to call this query 7a. I'm going to close out of query 7a now. In query 7a, there were over 5,300 records in our results. Most of them were duplicates with different combinations of grades served that had already been listed from previous schools and school years. We want to look at the unique combinations of grades served. So we want a listing where each unique grade served only appears once. Let's go ahead and create a query for this. We're going to go to the Create ribbon. We'll go back to Query Design and head over to SQL View. This query is going to be almost the same as 7a. We're going to have select school statistics dot grades served from school statistics, and then when you're done with the query, you kind of conventions to have a semicolon at the end. It doesn't matter as much in Access as it might in a real database, but it's good practice to go and put a semicolon at the end. So this is the same query we had as 7a. We get that 5,361 records. To go and say that we only want unique values, we're going to add what's called the distinct keyword, and distinct comes right after select. So we're going to tell it we want select distinct school statistics.grade served. So this is only going to go and display records that have not already had that value appear. When I go and run this query, you can see now each of these items only appears once, and we're down to 33 records. This is equivalent in Design View for the query to going to Properties for the query and then setting unique values to yes. So that's the distinct keyword. Let's go and save this, and we're going to call this one query 7b, and we'll close out of it. When we write queries, it's pretty common for us to want to have the results be sorted. The order by clause allows us to go and specify our sort order. Let's go and create a new query, and we'll go into SQL View. And here, I'm just going to type in what we had from query 7b. We're just going to build off that. So we had select distinct school statistics dot grades served from school statistics. When we're writing things here, there is sort of an order that the clauses need to go in. Select comes first, from comes after that. After that, we can put in the order by clause, and you have to have both words. It's order by. We can go and list here a comma separated list of the fields that we want to sort by, and it's just going to go from left to right in that order as it sorts things. Our case here, we only have one field that we're displaying in our result, so I'm just going to list that field, school statistics dot grades served. Now, by default, Access and essentially every other database out there is going to go and sort these results in ascending order. We go ahead and run this. You can see we have things in ascending order. Their values are increasing. And from Access's perspective, numbers come before letters. But let's say that we want to go and sort these in descending order. After we specify the name of our field, we can put DESC. That's a keyword that means descending. And that's going to sort that particular field in descending order. So you have to say like descending for every field if we had multiple fields, if we wanted them all to be in descending order. We can mix and match. There is also an ASC that's ascending. So that's ascending, which is the default if we don't specify anything. This is descending, so you can see that we start off with the letters first, work our way backwards. Let's go back to SQL View and just get rid of that keyword, and we're just going to default to ascending. We want to save this as query 7C. And we can close out of it. Up until now, the queries that we've written have all relied on data from one table. In real databases, that's pretty uncommon. Chances are that you're going to have to pull data together from multiple places in your queries. That's kind of the whole design of a relational database. To do that, we're going to use what's called a join clause. A join clause is essentially the same thing as going and create a relationship between tables in the relationships window or in the top part of our query design window. Let's go ahead and create a new query in query design, and we'll go to SQL view. For this query, we want to list the grade served, but we also want to see each school name and school year where that grade is being served. So we're going to have a couple fields here. For our query here, we're going to start off with the select keyword because these queries always start with the select keyword. I'm going to omit the distinct keyword this time because it's not really going to be relevant with the data we'll be displaying here. I want to go and list that I want to show the grade served field from school statistics first. So I'm going to do select school statistics dot grades served, and then I'm going to do a comma, and then I'm going to say that I want the school year field from school statistics. So we'll do school statistics dot school year, comma, and then we're going to grab the school name from the schools table. So I'll say schools dot school name. When you're writing SQL, there's no and or in terms of listing items in a list. We just put commas between them, and then when we're done listing, we're done listing. In this case here, I need to say where our data is coming from. So we're going to start off with a from clause, and we're going to pull from the same place as before. We're going to pull from school statistics, but we're also going to pull data from the schools table because that's how we're going to get the school name. We need to tell Access that we also want to get data from here. We're going to use an inner join clause to accomplish this. So the inner join comes after the from clause, and we type in inner join, both words here, and we're going to say what table we want to include. What table are we going to join school statistics to? Basically, this is going to be a table where school statistics has a relationship line directly to. So we're going to inner join with the schools table. And then we need to tell it what we want to join on. So we have to go and specify what fields we want to go and match up. So we have inner join, the name of our table, on, and then this is going to be essentially a criteria it's going to use for matching up records. So I want to go and inner join on school statistics dot school ID equals schools dot school ID. So in cases where the school ID matches in both tables, it's going to go and pull both parts together from the two different tables into one larger whole. Let's go ahead and sort our results. The order by clause always comes after any inner joins. And I'm just going to sort things by a slightly different order than we're displaying. I'm going to say that we want to order by school statistics dot grades served. So that's the same as the order it's going to be displayed in. But next, I'm going to sort by schools dot school name. Then I'll type a comma and the final one here. Since this is a comma separated list, we're going to do school statistics dot school year, and we'll end with a semicolon. Let's head over into design view and see how this looks. So you can see we actually have two tables now. We have school statistics, the one that we use the from clause on, and then we have schools that we listed with our inner join, and it's got this little line to represent how we set up that inner join with the on part. We're going through and listing the fields that we have in our output, and we have our sorts. The reason why school year appears here twice is that in design view, it represents things as being sorted in order from left to right. But that's not the order we want to sort in. So it's starting off with grade served. That's the first one we want to display, the first one we want to sort on, so that comes first. Then we're displaying school year, but we're not sorting on that one second, we're sorting on that one third. So we just have school year with no sort shown here. Then we have school name, and we're sorting on that one. Since we said that we wanted to go and sort on school year last, we have school year added and we're sorting on it, but the show box is unchecked. So that's kind of why this looks like it does with school year appearing twice. Let's go and run this query. And you can see here we have things sorted by school year, and then we have by school name, and then by school year. And you can see that we have 5,361 records to go with our 3 fields. Let's go ahead and save our query. And this is going to be query 7D. And then we'll close out of it. Now, let's say that rather than listing each of the school names for each combination of grades served and school years, we just want to see how many schools fall into that category. We just want a count of the number of schools. Let's create a new query to do that, and we're going to use the group by clause for that, which is essentially the same thing as turning on the totals option if we were in query design view. We'll go to the create ribbon and click on query design. I'm going to head over to SQL view. For this query, we're going to start off with the select keyword, and most of it's going to be the same as our previous query 7D. So I'm going to tell it that I want to select school statistics dot grade served, comma, school statistics dot school year. And we'll do another comma. Then I want to go and list the field where I'm going to do the count. There is a function called count, and it has a set of parentheses, and inside those parentheses I need to tell it what I want to count. Now I could really actually count on any of the fields from the schools table. That's going to give me the number of schools that fall in. It's pretty common though, if you're counting things, to go and count the primary key for that table. So I'm going to tell it that I want to count schools dot school ID. I want to give this field where I'm doing this count a friendly name so that we know exactly what it is. And I can specify a name for a field using the as keyword. So I'm going to tell it that I want to do that count as school count. So in my results, this field will show up as being named school count. Next, I'm going to do my from clause, and this part is going to be the same as what we did before. So we're grabbing it from school statistics, and I'm going to do an inner join with schools on school statistics dot school ID equals schools dot school ID. After that, I'm going to specify my group by clause. So in the group by clause, we're going to list any of the fields that are in our select clause that we're not going and doing any sort of special function with. We're not going to count or sum or anything on those fields. Basically, this would be any of the fields that in the query design view would say group by in the totals row. In this case here, I want to group by school statistics dot grade served, comma, school statistics dot school year. And after my group by, I can provide an order by for what I want to sort on. So I'm going to tell it that I want to order by school statistics dot grade served, comma, school statistics dot school year. Same thing that I group by. I'll do a semicolon at the end to finish things up here. Let's go head over to design view just so we can kind of see what we're looking at. So we have the totals option turned on. We're going and counting school ID, and we're aliasing that as school count. So we have like school count colon school ID to specify that that's what we're calling it as. We're grouping by the grade served in the school year, and we're sorting by both of those in ascending order. I'm going to go ahead and run this query. And we have 3 fields here in our results. And we have 226 records, which is what we're expecting. Looks like things are sorted fine. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. This one's going to be query 7E. I'll click OK and close out of it. For our final select query, let's see how we can use a where clause to filter our results. Go back to the Create ribbon and click on Query Design. We're going to head over to SQL View. This query is going to be pretty much the same thing as query 7E, except for rather than viewing every school year, we're only going to view results for the 2019-2020 school year. Let's go ahead and start off by writing our select clause. So we're going to select and we'll display the grades that are served. So that's going to be school statistics.grades served, and then we'll do a comma, and we're going to count the number of schools that have each combination of grades. So we'll count schools.school ID, and we're going to alias that as school count using the as keyword. That comes from the school statistics table, and we're going to interjoin that table with schools on school statistics dot school ID equals schools dot school ID. Now is going to be where we'll place our where clause. This is going to be where we'll define the criteria we want to use to restrict the results. So I'm going to type in the keyword where, and then I'm going to specify the test I want to use. I want to go and display results where school statistics dot school year, so this is the field that I'm interested in, is equal to, inside of double quotes, 2019-2020, and we'll close up our double quotes here. Now this is going to filter just on this one criteria. If I want to have multiple criteria, I can use the keywords and or to go through and list those multiple criteria. You don't put commas in a where clause. But we just need this one for this query. We're going to go ahead and group by school statistics dot grade served, since that's the only field in our result that we're not doing the count operation on, and we'll go and order by that same field as well. So we'll order by school statistics dot grades served, and we'll end with a semicolon. Let's check this one out in Design View. So you can see we've got the 2 tables here that we're listing. We're going through and displaying grades served, and we have our school count, and then we have the column here for school year, and we have our where criteria. Now, since I didn't list this field in the select clause, the show box is unchecked. Let's go ahead and run this, and you can see our grades served are sorted in ascending order. And we've got our count here of how many schools are in each category. And we have 31 records, which is what we're expecting. Let's save this one as query 7F. Click OK, and then we'll close out of it. Our next 3 queries are going to make changes to the data that's stored in our database. If you still have the security warning bar across your screen, make sure that you click the Enable Content button on it. Otherwise, these queries aren't going to run. For our first query, we're going to insert a record into the schools table. Let's go to the Create ribbon and we'll click on Query Design. We're going to head over to SQL View. For this query, it's going to start off with the word insert. And we're actually going to tell it that we want to insert into, followed by the name of the table that we're going to insert this new record into. So I'm going to insert into schools. Once we have the name of the table, we're going to have a set of parentheses, and inside that parentheses set, we're going to list each of the fields that we're going to provide values for. So, for example, we're going to provide a value for the school ID, then a comma, one for the school name, comma, county, comma, and if that school is closed. And we'll go ahead and close up that set of parentheses. After we've identified those fields, we're going to say the values that we want to insert. And we're going to use the values keyword for that, and then inside of parentheses we'll provide a value in order for each of these fields that we've listed. So our first value inside of double quotes, because this field is actually text, is going to be 039903. We'll close up our double quotes. We'll do a comma, and then we're going to give a school name inside double quotes. We're going to call this one Jennifer Garner Intermediate School, and we'll close up the quotes there, comma. We're going to say that it's in Kanawha County, again in quotes, and then where it's closed, we'll say false. And false is a keyword, so it's true as far as access is concerned. It doesn't need to go in quotes. You just type in true or false. We're going to go ahead and put a semicolon at the end. So when I go and run this query, it's going to go and append or insert a record to the schools table. I'll click the run button here, and I get this message that I'm about to append one row, and it just asks if I'm sure I want to make this change. I go ahead and tell it yes. And if I go and open up my schools table, I can see now down in Kanawha County that we have this Jennifer Garner Intermediate School. I'm going to close out of the schools table here. Let's save this query as query 7G and click OK. You can see that it has this little plus sign icon to tell us that it's going to add records. Let's go and close it out. For our next query, we're going to write an update query to change values that are already stored in the database. We'll go to the Create ribbon and go to Query Design again. We'll head on over to SQL View. Queries to go and change values that we already have stored are called update queries, and they start off with the update keyword. After update, we want to list the name of the table that has the records we're going to change. We want to go and change the school type name, and that is in the school types table. So we're going to update school types. Then we need to specify the set keyword. And after set, we're going to list the fields that we want to change and what their new value should be. So I'm going to set school types dot school type name equal to alternative learning center, and that alternative learning center, the phrase goes inside double quotes. And if I were to run this query right now, it would go and update every school type name to be alternative learning center, which probably isn't what we want to do. We want to go and add a where clause so that we can restrict which records are going to be updated. So we're going to say where, and we're going to change the school type name only for the records, or record in our case, where it's called alternative school as the name right now. So we're going to set where school types dot school type name equals alternative school. We'll go and close our quotes there around alternative school and put a semicolon on the end. Just so that you can see what this looks like in Design View, I'm going to head over there. And so you can see this is an update query. We just have this one table, and for school type name, we're updating to alternative learning center where the criteria is alternative school. I'm going to switch back over to SQL View, and let's run this. I'm getting a prompt here from Access just saying I'm going to update one row, and wants to know if I actually want to go ahead with that change, and I'll tell it yes. And if we look at school types, we can see the ALS abbreviation now means Alternative Learning Center after that query ran. I'll close out of the table, and let's save our query. This one's going to be query 7H. And you can see it has a little pencil icon here. So these ones will kind of stand out from our select query and from the other types. And let's close this query. Our last query will delete records. We'll go back to the Create ribbon and click on Query Design, and we're going to head over to the SQL View. For this query, we're going to provide the delete keyword, and we need to tell it where we want to delete from. And we're going to give it the name of the table that we're going to delete records from. In this case, we're going to go and delete records from the school types table where the abbreviation is OTH. So I'm going to tell it that I want to delete from school types, And then I want to give it a where clause so that I only delete certain records, because if I were to run this, it'd try to delete everything. I want to tell it that I want to delete where school types dot school type ABBRV equals, and I've got OTH as the code inside of double quotes. I'm going to first of all head over to design view just so you can see how this one is set up over there. It's marked as a delete query. We have our table, and we're setting our criteria for where OTH on the school type abbreviation field. We'll go back to SQL view and we'll run this query. And Access is telling us we're going to delete one row, and it asks, are we sure? Let's tell it yes. And if we open up school types, we can see that the other type is now gone. Let's save this query as query 7i, and then we can close it out. And that's the last of our queries for this project. Let's take a look at the analysis question for this project. I'm going to go into the analysis questions table here, and this will be question number 8a. The question asks us if there are any patterns in the number of high schools in a district, in particular where the school type abbreviation is HIS, relative to the population of the district, and we're asked why do we think this is the case or not the case. If we look at the data here, especially the information in the school statistics and district statistics tables, we're going to see that there is a relationship. The larger the population of a district, there are, generally speaking, more high schools. And especially more high schools that are only high schools with that HIS code, as opposed to ones that are maybe K-12 or combination middle and high school. And that kind of makes sense. If you've got a larger population, you're going to have more students, and there's kind of sort of a normal size for schools. Generally, you're looking at somewhere in the 300 to 1,000 range, although some are smaller, some are larger. But you're going to go through and just need more schools to be able to handle a larger student population. That's really what it boils down to. So that's pretty much what I've got in my answer. I'm going to go ahead and click out of that row to save the changes, and we'll close the analysis questions table. To wrap up our project, we want to compact and repair the database. I'm going to go to the Database Tools ribbon and click on Compact and Repair Database. And at this point, we're finished. Make sure that you close out of Access and submit your file.